My name is Avalini Routh, I'm 31, and last spring I discovered my husband's secret written not in words, but in a receipt. If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. It was Wednesday, 1842, when the smell of fried garlic from the street vendor seeped up through our fifth-floor windows. I had just folded laundry, 3 pale shirts, a pair of jeans still damp at the seams, when I noticed a small slip of paper in his jacket pocket. The fabric was warm from the radiator, the jacket heavier than usual. The receipt was from a cafe I didn't know. Cypress and Cole, dated 2 days earlier. 2 cappuccinos, 1 almond tart, total €11. 60. Nothing dramatic, except that he'd told me he worked late that evening, staying until 2100 hours for the quarterly numbers. He doesn't drink cappuccino, not once in 10 years. I ran my thumb over the faint thermal print. The ink felt fragile, as if it might fade under my skin. My pulse ticked in my ears louder than the neighbor's television. I put the receipt flat on the ironing board, beside a half-folded towel, and stared at it like it was an object from another life. Maybe he had treated a colleague. Maybe he'd sat alone. My mind tried on each excuse like shoes that didn't fit. When he came home that night, he dropped his bag on the sofa, kicked off his shoes and said nothing about cappuccinos or almond tarts. I studied his face, the way light from the hallway bulb made a shadow under his eyes. He kissed my temple quickly, already scrolling his phone. I tucked the receipt inside my notebook, between grocery lists and a dentist reminder card. My hand shook just enough to blur my handwriting. I didn't know yet that in 12 days the notebook would become my weapon. The kitchen clock blinked 7:19 when I set down a chipped mug of black coffee and opened the notebook where the receipt was hidden. The table was cluttered. A jar of apricot jam, yesterday's newspaper folded to the finance page, a single earring I'd found near the sofa. I pushed it all aside and placed the slip of paper in the center, like evidence laid out for cross-examination. He shuffled in, still tying his tie, the steam of his shower clinging to his shirt collar. "You're up early," he said, not looking at me, reaching instead for the jam. I kept my voice neutral. "Long day ahead." He spread too much jam, orange and sticky, dripping onto the newspaper. The waste irritated me more than it should have. I slid the receipt an inch closer to his elbow. He didn't notice. "You said Monday was the quarterly review, right?" I asked. "Emichim." He took a quick bite of toast. "Late night." "Yeah, almost till 10. His voice was casual, automatic. I felt the air tighten. "Funny," I said, tapping the receipt with one nail. "Because I found this." He glanced at it. For less than a second his jaw froze, then loosened again. "Coffee with a client. No big deal." "Which client? Does it matter? I don't remember every name." He pushed the toast aside, irritation bleeding into his tone. The clock ticked 3 times louder than cutlery. I let it drop for now. But inside something locked. I realized it wasn't the cappuccino that mattered. It was the way he dismissed me, the way the truth slid past like water he assumed I wouldn't cup in my hands. He grabbed his bag, muttered something about traffic and left. The door clicked shut at 7:41. I sat back down, the receipt still between us though he was gone. For the first time, resolve pressed against my ribs, sharper than fear. I would track every detail, every inconsistency. This wasn't over. It wasn't the first time my stomach tightened at his explanations. Years ago, when we were still renting a 42-square-meter apartment with a balcony that smelled of car exhaust, I found lipstick smudged on his shirt collar. He laughed then, said it was from a colleague leaning in at a crowded bar after work. I believed him because believing was easier than pulling at the thread. Another time, 3 winters back, he had business dinners twice in 1 week. He returned home at 22:30, the smell of wine still in his breath, jacket reeking faintly of perfume that wasn't mine. I told myself clients like to toast. He told me, "You worry too much." And I folded myself smaller, like a letter never sent. But there were also moments that confused me, moments that kept me tethered. The Sunday he cooked pumpkin soup from scratch, cutting the cubes precise as dice, saying you deserve a rest. Or when he surprised me with a train ticket to Gdansk for my birthday 2021, because he remembered I'd once said I wanted to see the sea in winter. That duality, tenderness and dismissal, kept me in orbit. Now the stakes were heavier. Last autumn, He refinanced the mortgage on this apartment, the one with 64 square meters and 2 rooms, and put only his name on the papers. It's simpler this way, he'd said, signing with a pen that cost more than my monthly Metro pass. I swallowed it, trusting his logic. But I knew. If this marriage fractured, so could my footing, my home. The receipt from Cypress and Cole wasn't just about coffee. It was about territory, what I owned, what I didn't. Every boundary blurred. And something deeper, my sense of being kept in the dark again and again. If he could lie about an evening, what else was fragile under my feet? The kitchen light buzzed softly overhead as I sketched a small calendar in my notebook. Each square was a day I'd watch closely. I needed proof, not just feelings. Proof meant leverage. Proof meant choice. The notebook became my map. Each entry, a mark of what was at stake. Not only the possibility of betrayal, but the roof I lived under, and my ability to claim truth without being waved aside. I pressed the receipt flat under tape, its edges curling like a warning. And in that act, I admitted it to myself. I was no longer collecting excuses. I was collecting evidence. 3 days later, on Saturday at 15:26, I sat in the corner of the living room, laptop on my knees, the radiator hissing faintly behind me. He had left his email open, careless maybe, or certain I wouldn't look. My fingers hovered, trembling, before I clicked on the minimized window. There it was, a thread labeled Re-Monday. For messages. At first glance, work jargon. But in the third reply I saw it. I liked how you ordered for me. Next time no tart, just you. Her line. A name I recognized, my friend. She had joined us for dinners, sat at this very table once with a glass of red, laughing at his jokes. His response, short but damning. Next time, just us. I felt the floor tilt under me. My knees pressed hard against the edge of the sofa frame. I printed the thread before my courage could dissolve. The printer in the hallway whirred loudly, every sheet a drumbeat. For pages warm to the touch, smelling faintly of toner. I slipped them under the notebook's cover beside the receipt. When he returned that evening with groceries, 2 bottles of sparkling water, a loaf of rye bread, I acted ordinary. I noted the way he whistled while putting tomatoes into the fridge, the way his key ring clinked when he tossed it onto the counter. My throat itched with words I didn't say. Instead, I excused myself, closed the bedroom door, and laid the printouts across the bed. The black and white lines stared back like cold witnesses. I touched the bottom corner of the last page, grounding myself. I could no longer tell myself this was imagination. It was documented. It existed outside of me, undeniable. The hum of the fridge carried through the wall. My pulse steadied slowly. For the first time in weeks, the fear receded. In its place came something quieter but sharper. Clarity. I folded the pages, slid them into an envelope, and wrote the date in neat blue ink across the flap. March 18, 2023. I make a choice. On Monday at 12:05, I met with our lawyer, not my lawyer, not yet. He had handled the refinance paperwork last year, the one where my name disappeared from the mortgage contract. His office smelled of dust and lemon polish, shelves lined with blue binders labeled by year. I laid the envelope on his desk, unopened, as though it might burn me if exposed. I need to understand what rights I actually have, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. He adjusted his glasses, tapped his pen twice against a legal pad. You're not listed on the loan or the deed. That complicates things. How much? Without proof of contribution, you risk being treated as a tenant. Even if you've paid without documented transfer, bank slips, receipts, you can't claim ownership. The radiator hissed near the window. My palms sweated despite the chill. What if I can show? I hesitated, then slid out one printed page. Not the affair line, but the grocery transfers, 46 transactions from my account into his over the last year. Rent, utilities, food. Each labeled monthly share. Does this count? He scanned it. Better. Keep all of them. Every euro you can document strengthens your position. He leaned back. But timing is key. If you confront too soon, he can cut off access. Accounts can be moved in a day. The word cut off lodged in my throat like a bone. Is there a deadline? I asked. He looked at his calendar. Mortgage renewal date. July 1, 2023. If nothing changes by then, the leverage window closes. You have a little over 3 months. 3 months. 99 days from now. I nodded, pressing the cool metal clip of my pen into my palm to keep focus. As I left, the corridor smelled faintly of boiled cabbage from a nearby flat. I clutched the envelope tight against my chest, the pages inside whispering with every step. Outside, the wind bit sharp against my cheeks, but clarity cut sharper still. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about roof and ground, name and number. I had proof. And now I had a deadline. The following Thursday at 9:14, I sat in a cafe 2 blocks from our apartment, the notebook open, a lawyer's card tucked in its back flap. Steam rose from my tea, the surface trembling each time the door opened and closed. I dialed. His voice on the other end was calm, clipped. "If you're ready, we file a preliminary injunction. It doesn't accuse, it preserves." "Preserves what?" I asked, my hand tight around the cup. "His assets. Specifically the apartment. We request a freeze until financial contributions can be clarified. It signals you're not invisible." I breathed in the smell of burnt croissant from the counter. My heart raced, but my voice came steady. "Do it." 3 steps unfolded quickly. 1. Document handover. I scanned the transfer slips, 46 pages, and emailed them at 10:22. 2. Draft letter. By 16:40, he sent me a 2-page request, language sharp as glass. Pending clarification of joint contributions, no alteration or disposal of property permitted. 3. Notice sent. Friday morning, 8:07, the courier confirmed delivery at his office. That evening when he walked through our door, I saw it. A flicker. His shoulders stiff, the usual toss of keys onto the counter absent. He set them down carefully, almost quietly, as if the metal might betray him. He didn't mention the letter, not at first. We ate in silence, knives scraping faintly on plates. Halfway through he spoke, voice tight. "You blindsided me." I sipped water, kept my tone even. "I secured what's mine." His hand clenched once, then released. "You think this will hold?" "It already does," I said. The clock on the wall ticked between us, each second louder than the last. He didn't argue further. Just cleared his plate, rinsed it longer than necessary, water pounding the sink. And in that quiet I recognized something I hadn't before. He was unsettled. Not me. By the next week, the air in our apartment had changed. The silence wasn't soft anymore. It was charged like static before a storm. He left earlier, came home later, but his movements were clipped, measured. Practical effects arrived first. Our joint card, the one I use for groceries, was suddenly blocked for security reasons. At the checkout in Lidl, Thursday 18:55, I stood with €73, 20 worth of items bagged already: milk, flour, apples, chicken thighs, while the machine flashed red. I paid with my own card, hands shaking as I entered the PIN. At home I told him plainly, "I need access to money. I've been covering bills too." He didn't look up from his phone. "Manage with what you have." So I did. I created a separate folder on my laptop labeled Essentials, listing every euro spent, every transfer. Controlled by clarity. My friend, well, the one I once called that, sent a message. "Haven't seen you. Coffee soon?" I didn't reply. The printouts in my drawer answered for me. One small win arrived quietly. The lawyer emailed confirmation that the injunction was logged, stamped with the court's seal. It meant he couldn't move or sell the apartment without notice. The paper was plain, almost boring, but I stared at it longer than I should have. It felt like a door wedged open where one was about to slam. Later, at the dining table, I placed the document between us. "This isn't about punishing. It's about fairness." His jaw tightened. "You're escalating." "I'm protecting." We both fell silent. The radiator hissed again, filling the space his words didn't. That night, as I slid into bed, I realized something subtle. The fear was less. Not gone, but less. And in its absence, I felt the first draft of power. A small win, not the end. 2 weeks later, a second piece of evidence landed without me searching. An envelope, pale brown, addressed to both of us, slipped through the slot at 10:12. I slid it open with my house key. Inside, a bank statement, his account. He must have forgotten to update the correspondence address. Rows of transactions stared back. On March 6 at 2017, Cyprus and coal again, Euro 24. 82 mains and drinks. The same day he'd told me he was at a late client meeting near the river. The numbers didn't lie. The scent of ink and cheap paper rose as I held the sheet, edges rough beneath my thumb. I folded it twice, slid it into my notebook beside the receipt and the printed chat. The triangle was complete. Time, place, and words. That evening, I placed the statement on the table. He came in at 1903, jacket slung carelessly, the smell of rain clinging to him. He glanced down, froze. "What's this supposed to mean?" he asked. "It means," I said calmly, "I don't need to imagine. The facts speak." He tried once more. "It's just dinner. You're making it bigger than it is." I looked at him evenly. 2 dinners. 1 chat. 1 receipt. That's not my imagination. The silence stretched, heavy with recognition he couldn't erase. He picked up the page, crumpled it, then let it drop. For the first time, I didn't raise my voice or ask for more. I simply said, "There's no way back from facts." And in that quiet, I knew the truth gap was closed. The lies had nowhere left to stand. 3 months have passed. It is July now, the air heavy with heat that clings to the curtains even at night. I sit at the dining table, the same one where receipts and statements once lay like open wounds. Now it holds simpler things. A bowl of cherries, my laptop, a half-finished glass of water beaded with condensation. The injunction held. The apartment remains legally untouchable, and my separate account grows steadily with each paycheck. I learned to reroute my salary, cancel the auto payments that once vanished into his balance without acknowledgement. Bills are in my name now. Clarity has become a kind of shield. We still cross paths, 2 people under the same roof but no longer orbiting. He avoids the topic of court, of evidence, of us. I don't chase explanations. Boundaries are silent but firm. We split groceries down to the cent. Conversations stay factual, like weather reports. This morning I met with the lawyer again. He slid across the table a draft plan. In 6 months, if I choose, I can petition for separation with documented grounds. The word choose anchored me. It is not about what he decides or dismisses. It is about me. Later, walking home, the city smelled of asphalt and basil from a corner stall. I realized I no longer scan his jacket pockets. I no longer wait for keys jangling at the door with dread. The notebook sits on my shelf, its pages flat, its job finished. Tonight, I'll water the plants on the balcony, the basil and the geraniums, and set my alarm for tomorrow's early train to the office. Small, ordinary rhythms. But they are mine, chosen. I live here, present, without apology. The next months are mapped not by his shadow but by my plan. Save, file, and move forward. Quiet strength, steady steps. And in this stillness, I finally hear myself.